Last time, we left John 117 standing aboard a longsword ship with Cortana floating above the wreckage of Installation 04. An ancient superweapon destroyed, a flood outbreak contained, and humanity's extinction delayed. You know, just a normal Tuesday. And after all of that, after the ring, the flood, the covenant, the impossible escape, Chief's response was just 7 words. No, I think we're just getting started. And he was not wrong. Because if Halo Combat Evolved introduced us to Master Chief as humanity's last best hope, then Halo 2 is where that hope becomes something much bigger. A symbol, a nightmare, a story the Covenant starts telling each other in increasingly panicked meeting rooms. And Halo 3? Halo 3 is where the legend makes 2 promises. 1, to finish the fight, and 2, to be there when we need him. Hey, and welcome to, or welcome back to, the Average Joe Nerdcast. I'm Nate, your resident Average Joe, your resident Halo-obsessed 90s kid, and at this point, a man who has spent so many hours talking about Master Chief that Cortana is legally recognized as a dependent on my tax forms. And you know what? I don't know when that happened, and I definitely don't know who approved it. But here we are. And this is Mainline Monday, part 3 of 5 in our journey through the life, legacy, and mythology of John 117. And today, we're talking Halo 2, Halo 3, and the moment a soldier stops being just a soldier and becomes a myth. So if Halo Combat Evolved introduced us to Master Chief, Halo 2 turned him into a legend. Actually, that's not quite right. Legend isn't a strong enough word because lots of gaming characters are legends. Mario is a legend. Link is a legend. Solid Snake is a legend. Halo 2 is where Master Chief becomes something stranger, a myth, a story. The kind of figure people whisper about after he's gone. And before we go any further, shameless plug time. If you want the full Halo 2 deep dive, then do me a favor, pause this episode and go back through the feed and find the episode, Halo 2, the sequel that changed gaming, again. Listen, I spent an unreasonable amount of time explaining why this game permanently altered both the gaming industry and my entire personality. And you know what? I regret absolutely nothing. Because Halo 2 doesn't just make Halo bigger, it changes what Halo is. Suddenly, this isn't just a science fiction shooter. Now we're talking about religion, faith, political corruption, prophecy, identity. The story civilizations tell themselves because the truth would be too terrifying. Fun Xbox stuff. And through all of it, John himself barely changes. And that's the fascinating part. Chief doesn't suddenly become more emotional. He doesn't unlock secret powers. He doesn't discover he's secretly descended from ancient space royalty. Nor does he find a magic crystal. Thank God, because if one more franchise tells me the hero was secretly the most special boy in the universe all along, I'm gonna start chewing on drywall. He is still the same Spartan, still focused, still determined, still operating with the social skills of a cinder block. Everybody else is the one losing their minds. Humanity starts treating him like a symbol, while the Covenant starts treating him like a monster. And honestly, they're both kinda right. And somewhere in the middle, the legend begins to outgrow the man. That right there, that's Halo 2. That's the story. At some point, there had to be a Covenant officer whose entire job was reviewing incident reports involving Master Chief. Not a prophet, not a fleet master, just some poor middle manager trying to survive yet another work week. And every single morning, he'd sit down at his desk, open a report, and immediately wish he had chosen a different career. Maybe become a teacher, maybe open a restaurant. Literally anything that doesn't involve explaining Master Chief to upper management. Human-boarded capital ship. Again? Again. How many casualties? Most? Most isn't a number. We stopped counting. Well, can you estimate? Respectfully, sir, no, we can't. Dude, imagine running a galaxy-spanning religious empire only to discover your greatest strategic threat is just one human and his aggressively competent blue hologram. A 7'2" super soldier who says maybe 12 words per game and treats your entire military infrastructure like a demolition derby. At some point, the Covenant had to stop asking, how do we defeat humanity, and just started asking, why is this one guy like this? Because Chief isn't winning through propaganda or through politics or through speeches. He's winning the same way he wins literally everything, by refusing to stop and refusing to lose. And that's exactly why Halo 2 transforms him from soldier into myth. The Covenant doesn't fear what he is, they fear what he represents. The possibility that everything they've built their civilization around might just be wrong. And somehow, that realization keeps arriving attached to the same exact green armored problem. Steve, what are you doing over there? Steve says the Covenant made a critical mistake. They kept treating Chief like a military problem when he was actually a workplace safety problem. You know what? Yeah. Steve also says at some point the reports stopped sounding like reports and started sounding like ghost stories. Be advised, the demon has been sighted. Where? Everywhere. You know, that's not helpful. Well, it's all we have. Thanks, Steve. Now I want an entire audio drama that's just horrified Covenant radio chatter. That's it. That would be the whole show. No humans, no Master Chief, just increasingly panicked aliens trying to explain what just happened. Steve also says somewhere in High Charity there is a prophet standing in front of a whiteboard, not really trying to figure out how to defeat humanity, just trying to figure out why this one human keeps showing up. And you know what? That's canon. Now, there are certain lines in gaming that just stop being dialogue, and they become part of the culture. You don't even have to explain them anymore. People just know. The cake is a lie. War? War never changes. Would you kindly? And if you're a Halo fan, then you already know where I'm going. Because in 2004, Bungie looked an entire generation of gamers directly in the eye and then hit us with one of the coldest lines ever recorded. Lord Hood asks, Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship? And John responds, Sir, finishing this fight. Come on, come on! 20 years later, and that line still hits like a freight train. And what's funny is that when I was younger, I loved that line for the exact reason every teenage Halo fan loved that line, even if I didn't necessarily enjoy the cliffhanger. But I loved it because it was cool. That's it. That's the analysis. I was a teenager. I wasn't writing a dissertation. A giant green super soldier looked at an alien armada and basically said, yeah, I'm going to go handle that. Which, now that I think about it, is an absolutely insane thing to say. It's not confidence. That is for sure a workplace hazard. And teenage Nate thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. No notes, but here's the weird thing. The older I've got, the more that line changes, because now I don't hear confidence. I hear responsibility. I don't hear bravado, I hear commitment. Chief isn't giving a speech. He's not trying to sound heroic. He's not delivering some grand monologue about destiny. Thank God. Modern fiction has developed a concerning addiction to telling us how special everyone is. And you know what? Sometimes a dude is just a dude. A very dangerous dude, but still a dude. John doesn't care if he's special. The mission isn't done. Therefore, the mission is getting done. End of discussion. That's the character. That's always been the character. The mission comes first. The people come first. The responsibility comes first. And maybe that's why the line sticks with so many people, because eventually life hands all of us something incredibly heavy. A responsibility, a burden, a promise, a grief. Something that doesn't magically disappear just because we're tired. And in those moments, there's something incredibly powerful about a hero whose response isn't, "Why me?" It's, "Okay, let's finish this." That's what I hear now. Not a catchphrase or a one-liner, but a philosophy. 4 words that perfectly capture the child who became a weapon, the weapon who became a soldier, and the soldier who became legend. This episode of the Average Joe Nerdcast is brought to you by the Covenant Threat Assessment Office. Are you a senior Covenant military commander struggling to explain ongoing operational failures to the High Council? The Covenant Threat Assessment Office is here for you. We specialize in professionally worded reports documenting encounters with a single human Spartan. Recent report highlights include subject boarded carrier vessel. Again? Again! How? We do not know. Please stop asking us. Another report reads, subject encountered, subject victorious, investigation ongoing. And our personal favorite, subject has now boarded 17 separate Covenant cruisers. We are beginning to suspect this may be a pattern. You think? The Covenant Threat Assessment Office also offers a standardized incident report template, pre-written talking points for high-profit briefings, and a professionally designed flowchart titled, What to Do If You See the Demon. Current instructions: Step 1, run. Step 2, there is no Step 2. The Covenant Threat Assessment Office. We cannot stop him, but we can document him with increasing specificity and genuine despair. And you know, for all the explosions, for all the battles, for all the giant alien death rings, Halo has always understood something a lot of science fiction forgets. The stuff we remember isn't the spectacle, it's the people. Just think about your favorite moments from literally any franchise. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Mass Effect, Halo. Eventually, it always comes back to relationships, to connections, to the people trying to hold on to each other while the world falls apart around them. And that's why this moment works. At the end of Halo 2, Chief is preparing to leave Cortana behind on High Charity. And before he goes, she says, "Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it." Dude, that line lands differently when you're older. Because when I was younger, I heard that line and thought, oh no, something bad is about to happen. Which is technically true. But that's the surface level reading. Nowadays, well, now I hear something else entirely. I hear fear, I hear vulnerability, I hear somebody trying very hard not to ask a question they're terrified of hearing the answer to. Because underneath all the science fiction stuff, that's what this moment is. She's asking, are you coming back? And maybe even more importantly, can I trust you to come back? Because, you know, promises are strange things. They're very easy to make and much harder to keep. And the longer you live, the more you realize how many people don't follow through. And not always because they're bad people. Sometimes life just gets in the way. Sometimes circumstances change. Sometimes people mean well and still let us down. You know, my mom used to say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And honestly, she's right. Most broken promises don't come from malice. They just come from life. From people overestimating what they can carry, from circumstances changing, from plans falling apart. Shit just happens, which is exactly why this moment hits so hard. Because John makes the promise anyway. Not because he's certain he'll survive, and not because he knows everything will magically work itself out. And for sure, not because the odds are in his favor. I mean, have you met this franchise? The odds are never in his favor. Halo looked at the phrase reasonable chance of survival and immediately threw it in the trash can. He makes the promise because he intends to keep it, and that's an important distinction. One of the defining traits of Master Chief is not courage or strength or even determination. It's reliability. When he says he's going to do something, he means it. And maybe that's why this relationship has endured for so long, because beneath all the armor and military hardware and world-ending stakes, it's all built on trust. The belief that no matter how bad things get, the other person is always coming back. And in Halo 3, well, he keeps that promise. Because of course he does. He's John 117. It's just what he does. Yes, Steve?
Okay.
Steve says she told him not to make a promise he couldn't keep. Yeah, dude, that about sums it up. Steve also says, and yet he made it anyway. Yes, once again, you're 2 for 2. Steve says that's either the most heroic thing or the most reckless thing anyone has ever done. Well, buddy, I mean, with John, it's usually both. So if Halo 2 ends with a promise, then Halo 3 is about keeping it. And before I go any further, yes, once again, shameless plug time. If you want the full Halo 3 deep dive, complete with midnight launch memories, landfall appreciation, and my completely reasonable inability to hear the menu music without immediately becoming 18 years old again, then go check out the Halo 3 episode in the feed. It's called Halo 3 at 18, Finishing the Fight, Forge Nights, and the Legacy of a Legend. Because Halo 3 doesn't just conclude a trilogy, it completes a journey. And not just for the player, but for John, for Cortana, for an entire generation of Halo fans. And somehow, through all the world-ending stakes and galaxy-saving heroics, Bungie never loses sight of the thing that matters most. The people, the relationships, the promises. Because that's what Halo has secretly been about this entire time. Not rings, not aliens, not super soldiers, but people. The Ark is collapsing, the Flood is contained, the Human Covenant War is over. Humanity survives. For the first time in a very long time, the fight is finished. And after decades of war, sacrifice, impossible odds, and more near extinction level events than any human being should reasonably experience, John finally does something almost unthinkable. He rests. Well, sort of. Because Halo is physically incapable of letting this man have a normal afternoon. No retirement, no beach episode, no fishing trip, no Chief discovers woodworking. Which, now that I say that out loud, it is now my favorite alternate Halo timeline, just Master Chief becoming Ron Swanson, building a dining room table in a cabin somewhere out in the woods. Cortana shows up, "Chief, humanity is under attack again." And Chief just nods. Maybe says, But Chief, the galaxy is literally ending. Yeah, but this oak is really coming together. Dude, why do I want this show now? But no. The universe looked at John 117 and said, hey, best I can do is cryosleep. The Forward Unto Dawn is torn apart during the escape from the Ark. Part of the ship makes it back to Earth, and part of it doesn't. And stranded in deep space with Cortana, John climbs into a cryotube and delivers one of the most iconic lines in gaming history. Wake me when you need me. Come on, how are you supposed to hear that and not feel something? Because when I was younger, I thought that line was cool. That's what I heard, cool. The hero goes to sleep, the music swells, fade to black, roll credits, let's go! But the older I get, the more complicated that line becomes. Because now I hear something else. I hear a man whose entire life has been defined by purpose. Seriously, think about it. John has never known a normal life, never had the luxury of asking, what do I want? His life has always been, what needs to be done? Protect humanity, complete the mission, save lives, answer the call. Again and again and again. That's who he is. That's who he's always been. So when he says, "Wake me when you need me," part of what makes the line beautiful is its selflessness. But part of what makes it heartbreaking is that he doesn't say, "Wake me when I want to come back," or "Wake me when I'm ready," or "Wake me when I've figured out who I am." No, it's still about service, about duty, about being needed. And I think that's why the line resonates so deeply with so many people, especially as we get older. Because, eventually, most of us become someone's chief: a parent, a spouse, a friend, a caregiver, the dependable one, the person who gets the phone call, the person who shows up, the person everyone counts on. And once you've lived that life for a while, then you understand something. Purpose is a gift, but it's also a burden. Because eventually you stop asking, "What do I want?" and you start asking, "Who needs me?" That's the heart of the line. Not glory or heroism or badass one-liners, but service. The willingness to answer the call one more time, no matter how tired you are, no matter what it costs. And that's why Master Chief endures. Not because he's the strongest hero in gaming, or because he's the most powerful, or because he always wins, but because at the end of everything, after all the battles, after all the loss, after all the sacrifices, his final message is still the same. If you need me, I'll be there. And honestly, that's about as heroic as it gets. Today's episode of the Average Joe Nerdcast is also brought to you by Cryosleep. Have you just prevented the extinction of all sentient life? Are you currently drifting through deep space in the remains of a UNSC frigate with no immediate rescue in sight? Cryosleep is here. Cryosleep offers indefinite suspended animation, zero caloric requirement, no paperwork, no meetings, and the specific peace that comes from knowing you gave everything you had, and the people you protected made it home. Cryosleep is recommended for Spartans who have finished their fight, heroes who have earned their rest, and anyone who would like to avoid answering emails for the next several decades. Cryosleep does not include a guarantee that the universe will leave you alone. History suggests it absolutely will not, but when it calls, you'll be ready. Cryosleep. Wake me when you need me. We will. And that's going to do it for part 3. And you know what? Looking back, it's kind of amazing how much of John 1:17 can be understood through 2 simple promises. Sir, finishing this fight, and wake me when you need me. One is a promise to the mission, and the other is a promise to the people. One defines the soldier, while the other defines the man. And together, they explain why this character has endured for more than 20 years. Not because he's the strongest, and not because he's invincible, and definitely not because he's the most powerful hero gaming has ever produced. But because when the moment comes to carry something heavy, he picks it up, and he keeps moving. Part 4 is dropping next Monday. And next time we're talking about something Halo fans have debated for years: the humanity beneath the armor. Why stoicism isn't the same thing as emptiness, and why Master Chief starts hitting a lot differently once you've lived just a little longer. And that's going to do it for this edition of Mainline Monday, part 3 of 5 in our journey through the life and legacy of John 1:17. But before I head out, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, be sure to follow the show, leave a rating, and drop a review if you've got just a couple of minutes. Every single review helps, every share helps, and every recommendation helps. Independent podcasts live and die by word of mouth and ratings, and I appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to do so. By the way, episode 100 is coming up in just a few months, which honestly feels insane to say out loud. When I started this thing, I was just a nerd from Kentucky with a microphone and way too many opinions about video games. Now, somehow, there are enough of you listening that episode 100 is an actual thing we're planning. So I've got a question. How did you find the show? What episode hit you the hardest? And what topics would you like us to cover in the future of the Average Joe Nerdcast? Send everything over to averagejoenerdcast@gmail.com or drop it over in the lobby. I'd genuinely love to hear from each and every one of you. And speaking of the lobby, sir, finishing the fight, what's your version of that line? What's the thing you kept showing up for, even when it would have been so much easier not to? The responsibility, the burden, the promise, the thing you carried because someone had to. Drop your answers over in the thread. And you know what? I have a feeling there are going to be some incredible answers to that question. And if you're not already over in the lobby, I'll drop the link in the show notes, or you can head straight over to Facebook and in the search bar just type Average Joe Nerdcast the lobby, and you will find the page. Now, before I get out of here, a real quick shout out to my player 2, who has listened to me quote Master Chief in completely inappropriate situations for years now, including household chores that were nowhere near as dramatic as I made them sound. Apparently, sir, finishing this fight is not the appropriate response to taking out the trash. But you know what? I disagree. But the debate continues. Thank you for supporting this ridiculous adventure. You're the reason any of this exists. I've been Nate, your resident Average Joe, your resident Halo-obsessed 90s kid, and a man who has now spent so much time talking about Master Chief that I'm pretty sure the Covenant has opened a file on me. Stay gold, nerd bold. The lobby, well, it's always open. And remember, if someone needs you, show up and wake me when you need me. I'll catch you on the next one.
Game over.